What's up, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of Casters of Horror. I am Chris Mess.
I'm Shane, and this week we're breaking down M3GAN. Or M3GAN.
M3GAN. Yeah, and we actually get the reason why it is called M3GAN.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that here in a little bit. First off, we're gonna hit you with a little bit of movie news. Yeah. So to start things off, I'm gonna jump into a video game, but it's also based off of a movie, Evil Dead: The Game, which is came out from Epic Games. It's a game that I have, but I still have not played it yet. Because when do I have time to play many video games? They are actually coming out with something that they call Splatter Royale later this week.
Nice.
So it's going to be a twist on a battle royale where you get up to 40 deadites, including like even Ash himself and everything as a deadite, but up to 40 deadites who play head to head to see who's the last on top. So if you guys have that game, it is it's going to be a download for it. That's going to be coming out February. Hey, guess what? If you're listening to this, it's already come out. So go check that out if you have it. If you don't, I've heard the game's great. I have it. I just still haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Anyway, and let's see what else. A little bit of sad news. The original Wednesday Addams, Lisa Loring, has passed away at the age of 64.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that she was that young.
Yeah.
But anyway, the original Wednesday Addams has passed away. So a little bit of sad news going there. Man, I'm going through these things fast today. I'm like, let's get this going. You just move through it. Last bit of movie news that I had. The Oscars are coming up. I know you're big into the Oscars.
Oh yeah.
Aren't you?
Oh yeah.
You're a huge
never miss
Oscars
it.
fan. So this is going to be right up your alley. Oscars or not, I think people should be recognized for the work that they do.
Uh-huh.
And the Oscars supposedly have been one of those standards where it's like one of the greatest honors as an actor or actress. And Mia Goth, Pearl herself, is calling for Oscar reform.
Yeah.
And I agree with her.
I do too.
Nope was left out of Oscar contention this year, which I thought for sure that out of any horror film, that one and maybe Pearl, Pearl being with the style of Oscar films.
Yeah.
But Nope, visually, I think could have made it. Plus the commerciality, is that a word?
Yeah.
Commercial ability.
Yeah.
Commercial ability of that film, plus being Jordan Peele.
Yeah, but Nope is it's a serious takedown of Hollywood itself. So like the story is a takedown of Hollywood. So I really can't see them rewarding that, even if it wasn't horror.
But see, it was on so many short lists, and that's the thing. Yeah. It was like right there, being at the point where it was like it could have been in that spot. So yeah. I don't know. I'm not. I like people getting recognition for what they do. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around this year's nominees. Some of them that they're just like, how did this person even get nominated? Because their film was so hated.
Oh yeah.
Or even their character, like people were like, it was not a great film. It was not a great role for them, yet they're still nominated. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. I wish that there was some way of awarding these people something.
And I think that eventually it could happen. And the example I would use is the Lord of the Rings, because when those movies came out, which, believe it or not, we're creeping up on 20 years since those movies came out.
Yeah. Hasn't it been 20 years? It's been 20 years.
As of now, it may be. I think this year might be the 20th. I don't remember.
Yeah, because it was the year. I know that I owned them on Blu-ray the year that when they were coming out, and at least the Fellowship of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I was married.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, so. It's possible we have passed the 20 years. This last year, too, has been a blur. So, but I mean, there was a lot of complaints when those first two movies weren't even considered for anything. And then the third movie, which I don't even think is the strongest, won. In at least one category, several categories, I think. And I honestly think the only reason it won is because there was such pushback, because it was a beautiful series of films. There was no excuse for it not being considered, other than the fact that the Academy would never look at fantasy films as legitimate, and they're
doing the same thing with horror.
Yeah, and so I think we may have some time ahead of us, but once, if at some point we can ever get a new generation of people in there, then maybe some horror actors and directors and whatever can finally get their recognition that they deserve. Because
maybe, unless all the people that are allowed into the Academy are just people who've been churned out from the people before.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Which seems to be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's just a big grooming mill.
Yeah.
Everything in this world is a big grooming mill for something. But speaking of grooming mills and people being created, I don't know. Yeah. I was trying to segue. We might as well jump into this week's film.
Let's go.
Because that's all I had for movie news, unless you had something.
I suppose it might be worth mentioning that The Last of Us, HBO's The Last of Us, has been renewed for a second season after the absolutely massive start to the first two episodes. I thought this was a no-brainer. It's obviously going to happen. So yeah, we are getting a season 2, and Neil Druckmann, the director of the game, has confirmed that season 2 will cover the second game. It's not immediately clear if season 2 will cover all of the second game, but
I'm wondering if they're gonna try to milk a third season just by stretching the second game out.
Yeah, which they could do. I think I don't really think it would be necessary. And I'm afraid
just because it's not necessary doesn't mean they won't do it.
I'm afraid we might end up with filler if that happens, but
extra storylines that just and you're probably going to get side characters more into their stories and stuff like that,
which is fine. And that's exactly what happened. I don't know if you've watched it yet, but that's exactly what happened with this episode 3 of this first season.
I've not.
Yeah, so I
haven't watched 3 yet.
It takes one of the side characters that you come across during the course of the game, and it really develops that character's story. So I really liked it. I don't know how people who haven't played the game are going to react to it. It seems to be getting a lot of good reaction, but
I've been hearing good things about it.
Yeah. So The Last of Us is a smash success. So it's obviously they wasted no time in greenlighting that for a second season. So
cool. Well, if you guys have checked out The Last of Us, or if you haven't, or if you're excited about it, let us know what you guys think. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, but make sure you comment down below what you guys think of The Last of Us. And who knows, maybe when the season's over, maybe we could even cover that. I don't know.
I know we had briefly mentioned this too before we started recording, but the Annie Wershing who played Tess in the video game passed away this past week. At 45, I think she was.
Yeah. That's young.
Cancer can take
That's
a
young.
flying leap, dude.
Yeah.
What
Yeah. Yeah, I had my scare of it.
Yeah.
Recently. So, yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's
but been a bit of a downer news there on The Last of Us, but it's since we're talking about it anyway, I thought that was worth bringing up.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Way to go.
Yeah, we're just where do we go from here now? Well, that's the end of this week's podcast. We're all just gonna go and mope. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this week's film. We are talking about M3GAN.
Yes, we are.
I had to say that so I could throw the poster up. yeah, we're talking about M3GAN. I don't know. I'm my brain is off today for some reason. I'm like here, but like rushing through things and then not. I don't know what's going on. This is gonna be a fun one, people. This is put out by Blumhouse and Atomic Monster. So we are seeing one of the first team ups by James Wan and Jason Blum.
Yeah.
Or Blum? I don't
know.
Blum.
I've heard it pronounced both ways, so.
yeah. He goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's directed by Gerard Johnston, who did Housebound. He also did the TV series The New Legend of Monkey, Terry Teo, and the Jackie Brown Diaries. My voice cracked halfway through that. I was like, would you like fries with that, sir? It was written by Akila Cooper, who also did Malignant. She also did a bunch of episodes of Grimm, which I loved that show.
Yeah.
Witches of East End. She did a bunch of The 100 as well. And, of course, it was also written by James Wan, who... he's done everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I was going to list off some of the... Saw, Insidious, Conjuring, Annabelle, The Nun. Just...
Also, like you have said in the past, a producer on just a ton of stuff, including Lights Out, which a lot of people didn't like, but I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. He also directed Fast and Furious 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which I loved. So, yeah. Yeah. So, anyway. Let's jump on in. Film begins with a commercial, which a lot of things are starting off now with.
Yeah.
For Perpetual Pets, Purr Perpetual Pets.
Yeah.
These are pets that last forever.
Yeah.
You can interact with them by talking or feeding them food through your iPad or your tablet, and then they poop out little thingies or fart, and they're kind of crude mouthed little troll type Furbies.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? I know you were gonna say something.
It's just the stylizing on the name of these things is really weird because it is Perpetual Pets, but Perpetual the
second R.
Yeah, the second R is capitalized, and so the two capitalized letters are PR. So I just saw that. I'm like, that can't be an accident.
I was trying. Okay, now I get. Okay, I was like, why is the R capitalized?
Yeah,
but I get that's funny. I didn't put that together. That is funny.
This thing it's basically a Furby.
Yeah, it's a Furby.
It's a Furby.
It talks and I mean, it's fairly cognizant in a way.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, it's definitely programmed. It's got a set parameters.
It occurs to me that anybody who is not our age is probably like, what the hell is a Furby?
Yeah, possibly.
I think I just dated both of us.
Possibly. I've never dated you, sir.
No.
No. So there we see a family. They're driving in the winter. They're going on vacation to a cabin. It's snowing out incredibly. We see the mother is talking to the daughter. She's like, "You need to, turn that thing down," because she's got one of the perpetual pets.
Yeah.
We find out that her aunt, the girl's aunt, had given it to her, which is the mom's sister. They're driving and they just can't see on the road that they're on at all. Finally, the mom's like, just stop then, just stop. And the husband's like, okay, fine. And he pulls out, he just stops, like out in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Just stops. And they're like, well, we'll wait for one of those big snowplow, the trucks to come by.
Yeah.
And they just get Jeremy Renner. Okay.
Dude,
they get what, too soon.
Too soon.
What
the heck, man?
That was his own. so anyway, they get slammed into.
Yeah. Well, like you said, he doesn't even try to pull over, and it is blizzard. It's whiteout conditions; they can't see. But yeah, like you said, he doesn't even try to pull over. He just stops.
So, just stops right in the middle of the road. And you're just like, okay. And it doesn't look like it's a busy road.
No.
But still, he's right on the middle of it. But immediately we see a big factory, a toy making factory.
Chris, did you catch
modern
this
day
when the
Funky?
When the
Funky toy company.
Before this, we see the title, the title card. Okay, M3GAN. Did you note that the E came up as like one of those spinning loading screens? Like
yes.
But it was just a clever.
It was like it was loading.
Yeah, it was loading, and then it turns into M3GAN. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
There's a lot of little weird quirks in this movie. But yeah, it was like a loading, like it was buffering.
Yeah,
and then So we see Funky Toy Company, Funki. Obviously, a take on Funko.
No, yeah.
And we see like developers. They're all walking around. It's like people. You're seeing it's a big place. Lots
they're
of
doing like
there.
testing, market testing.
Yeah,
some toys.
New toys, and all this sort of stuff. We come to one particular team. They're working on a new project led by Gemma. Gemma's played by Allison Williams, who was in the film Get Out. She was also in The Perfection, which I have not seen yet, and I've heard was a great movie. She was also on the TV show Girls. Anyway, they're working on a new Android-like doll, toy, whatever. And they're trying out like this new latex skin that they had just gotten in. They're wanting to present this project or whatever, and all of a sudden we hear banging on this glass. I mean, it's a high-tech facility. Banging on the glass, and you see which we find out is her boss, David, who's played by Ronnie Chang, stand-up comedian, also The Daily Show. One of the correspondents on there. He's done some other things as well.
Perfect casting in this role too.
Oh yeah,
great in this role.
Great job. He's trying to swipe his card. He finds out like he doesn't have access to get into it. He's like, "What are you trying to do? Keep me out? Keep it as a secret and all this. What are you doing working down here, spending all the money and blah blah blah." And then he starts talking to them about these things called fursies. He's like, "Have you seen this?" And he shows them a commercial on a tablet. Like he has his assistant Kurt show them this commercial from a competing toy company for fursies. And it's like a complete ripoff, can do exactly what their stuff does. But he's like, it's for half the price. And he like throws the tablet. He's mad.
Yeah.
and he's like, "What is this?" And they're going to show off M3GAN now. Okay, they think it's going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
She says it's called M3GAN because it's the Model 3 generative android.
Yeah. Which, again, I feel like really messes them up, because wouldn't the next one, like, after this would be 4?
M3GAN.
After this would be Model 4.
M3GAN?
Before that was Model 2, right? I mean, she didn't call them all M3GAN, right? But whatever, whatever.
Well, because there is a second one coming, people.
Yeah.
So, which will be interesting. We see that M3GAN starts talking, blah, blah, blah. And then she starts kind of glitching out. We find out one of the teammate guys has forgotten to put like a regulator thing in, like a coolant regulator back in before he put the skin on. And she starts like, the skin starts bubbling up and blah, and then it just explodes. And David's mad. He's like, wrap this up. I don't want anything. You're not working on this anymore.
Yeah. He said, he basically tells them, I want a Pets model that can sell for like $50, and I want this thing in the closet. So
Yep. Next thing, immediately we see that the little girl that was in the car is still alive.
Yeah.
I don't know quite how we got here, because it didn't seem like Gemma was informed that her niece was there.
She got a call. She so while she's in
I guess I missed it.
Yeah, while she's in the room, right after he says, put this M3GAN thing in the closet, whatever, her phone rings and she picks it up, and it's a call from the Oregon Emergency Medical or whatever.
Okay.
And then it cuts to the hospital.
Okay, because I'm sitting here going, what?
Oh.
I was like, how did she? So anyway, and I must have been taking notes at this time.
Yeah.
This is what sucks about.
Yeah.
And I'll get into this a little bit later too, because this is, I don't want to soapbox as of yet. But Chris, your life is so hard. Anyway, the little girl's laying there in the bed. Her name's Katie. She's played by Violet McGraw. She was in The Haunting of Hill House. She was also on the show Jet, and also in the TV show Love. We find out that the girl is now going into into Gemma's custody, because she's the aunt, thus niece, blah, blah. They're back at the girl's house, getting some of her stuff. And then they take the long drive back home to Gemma's. I kind of summed that up, hopefully, quickly.
Yeah.
And then went on, and now it's just as long as the scene print. Pull up to the house. The neighbor is out washing her car. Pressure washer, spraying crap everywhere.
Yeah.
The neighbor's dog comes and jumps on the car window, scaring Katie. Gemma's like, get your dog out of my yard, blah, blah, blah. And then neighbor's like, hi, neighbor, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff, and you want to use my pressure washer? And
neighbors like, no. Neighbors being neighborly,
Yeah.
And
but
Gemma's kind of upset.
Still annoying.
Still annoying, but like the water is coming out from underneath, is like going into Gemma's lawn or something, and she's pissed about that.
Yeah.
So
there's like mud coming out of and chemicals coming out of the flower beds going onto the driveway, and all this sort of stuff. And down here in the South, I don't get that much where, like, that sort of stuff happens. People are spraying off there. It runs in. It's like, whatever. Up north, when I lived up there, I could see this happening. People are a little bit more anal.
Yeah.
Which
and she is.
I have
too.
no problem with.
She when she gets into the house, she kind of like arranges stuff, and she's the type who will go and like straighten stuff that's slightly out of place. So I think that's just part of how she is. This is
everything in order.
Yeah.
She's an engineer. Engineers have a tendency everything around them is in order except for what they're working on for most of the time.
Yeah.
That can just be a complete mess, but everything around them has a specific place and all that sort of stuff. And then whatever they're working on is just everywhere.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of like how I'm learning programming and stuff, and my desk is pretty clean, but then I can have like 50 tabs open on my browser. So
yeah,
similar.
Yeah. As long as they're not deep fakes and you're streaming, we're good.
Nope.
Yeah. Streaming news.
Yeah.
So now Katie's moving in.
Yeah.
They're moving all of her stuff in. We hear this smart home thing kind of come on. It's like, welcome home, Gemma. You have 7 voicemails and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, she calls it Elsie.
Yeah. It's like it's like an Alexa device.
Yeah, but it's something that she's obviously made herself.
Yeah, it seems to be.
It's like her own creation. She's robotics, all that jazz. They realize that they haven't brought any toys for Katie, and I'm like, kids play with toys still?
I know, right?
Yeah, no toy, and she's like, well, what about, she starts looking at like the collectible toys that are up on a shelf, and she's like, oh no, those aren't toys. And she goes, I mean, they are, but they're not. They're collectible. So which how many times have I told my kid this?
I know.
Like, that's not a toy. Don't.
We're both looking at each other's backgrounds here. It's like, yeah.
I'm like, don't touch that guy. He's like $400.
Yeah.
So don't touch him. They're like 100 and something each. Now everybody's gonna be like, where's this dude live? That's the stuff I'm stealing. So anyway, it's now bedtime. It's kind of, you can tell it's awkward for both of them. They don't know quite what to do. Katie's like, are you going to read me a bedtime story? And she's like, what? And so, I mean, it goes into a whole thing and blah, blah. Next thing, Gemma is in the garage going through her sister's stuff. She hears Katie crying in the other room.
Yeah.
Just kind of checking on her, blah, blah. Now it's next morning. Katie's watching TV. There's a phone call. Find out she's on the phone with someone from the team, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I need to come back into work, blah, all this sort of stuff. They're like, take the time that you need, take the time. And she's like, I really got to get back. Then there's somebody at the door. It's the therapist.
Yeah.
Also, I guess social services, maybe-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of the same sort of thing. It's a therapist coming to check to see how Katie's doing.
Yeah.
And how the situation goes. Katie's like, well, we don't have any toys or anything like that. There's no toys to play with. And she's like, well, what about all these toys?
Yeah.
And she goes, those aren't toys. And she goes, oh, no, we can open these. And Gemma starts like opening one of her collectibles, and you can see it's like paining her. It's just like, oh, I don't want to, but okay. And then she's like, well, roll the toy to each other. And she's like, that's not what it's made to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, fine. And so you can see there's just, a lot of concessions being made.
Yeah.
The therapist
but also I have to question this therapist. This girl isn't like 4, and she's like, roll the ball back and forth.
Yeah, roll the ball back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, she's almost treating her like she's a dog.
Yeah.
It's
I want to see how you play. This isn't however old this girl is, like 12 or I don't even know how old she's supposed to be, but
she's 9.
Oh, is she 9? But still,
she's 9.
I
think. I think she's 9.
I can't.
I don't know, because I watched another movie, and in one of the films, one of them is 9.
Okay. Well,
don't remember which one.
Regardless, this girl is too old to get any sort of joy out of just rolling a ball back and forth across the floor. But, but whatever.
Yeah. Not a 2-year-old or 3 or 4. Yeah. So the therapist is definitely patronizing.
Yeah.
So the therapist starts asking Gemma by herself. She's like, how how close were you and your sister? And she's like, I just almost like, I don't think you're cut out to do this.
Yeah.
The dad's parents really they contacted me and they really want the girl if you're not. And she's like, are you kidding me? You know, like they contacted you. She's getting upset. They're like, look, you need to make some adjustments or else I'm taking the girl to the grandparents in Florida. So, and she promised her sister that she would take care of her. So that's a big part of this. At this point I would just be like, take the kid, huh? We're not that close. So Gemma comes back in. She's like, look, I really need to work on this project. I need to get some work done. You can use my iPad. And Katie's like, well, what about screen time? And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
She's like, just play it as long as you want. I don't care.
Yeah, because in the opening, the mom was like, I thought we were going to limit her screen time.
Yeah, right? The mom's very much like very little electronics, Aunt's
like, what's screen time?
Yeah, we have two very differing parenting styles, which to me, I'm like, screen time. My kid's on his like all the time.
Yeah.
Like, when he's home for vacation, I'm just like, that's what you want to do. That's fine, whatever. She's like, I'm not going to be long. Go ahead and hold down the fort. I'm just going into her garage / lab / office. Whatever. Yeah. And she goes like, then we'll do something. I'll only be working for an hour or two and then we'll do something.
Yeah.
Now it's night. It's nighttime now.
It's been way longer than an hour.
Yeah. She's like, I'm so sorry. And Katie brings up this drawing. She's like, and shows her what it is and all that sort of stuff. And Gemma's like, well, do you want to see what I'm working on? She shows her and she's like, oh, that's really cool and all this. And then Gemma shows Katie the first robot that she had made, like the first one that she did in college.
Yeah.
His name's Bruce. She has to put on like these gloves and she has to make it move and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's something, it's not autonomous. It is controlled by haptic gloves.
Yeah.
I can remember haptic. I can't remember half this other crap.
Yeah.
Katie says, if I had a toy like Bruce, I don't think I'd ever need another toy again.
Yeah.
So, ding. Yep. Gemma has this idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish M3GAN. So then we get this building montage with music and all this. And the team is like, we're working together type thing, and they're making M3GAN and like, we're going to put on some makeup. So they get M3GAN build.
Yeah.
Okay. That's that whole scene. There is talking in it, but whatever. David shows back up. He's like, where's my prototype? Because he wants to see, he's expecting a prototype for the new, cheaper
pets, yeah.
Perpetual
pets.
Thank you. Perplexion pets. It's like, where's my prototype? And then Gemma brings Katie in to meet M3GAN. And she shows, and it's like in this room, it's like a one-way glass.
Yeah.
Or one-way mirror type thing, and so they're watching from like this observation room, and Katie and Gemma and M3GAN are in the fishbowl. And Katie pairs up with M3GAN. M3GAN comes alive. Now they are connected forever, basically, is what the whole thing was. Is once the child syncs up, or whoever the first person that it syncs up with, that's who they're connected with forever.
Yeah.
Okay. So, M3GAN does like this drawing. She's like, guess my drawing and all this sort of stuff. And by the end of it, David's like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is amazing. He's like, I want you to remember this moment because this is when we kicked Hasbro in the dick.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's one of the best lines in the whole thing. So he's like, this is going to take a lot of money, but I want these things ready to roll out. We need to do this. Blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because they're saying, like, we're talking about a toy that's going to like cost as much as a Tesla, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, lots of money.
Yeah.
So, which I find odd, because he's like, how much is it going to cost me less than a Tesla? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, let's do it. But when they're talking about putting them out, that the doll was going to cost like $10,000.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that's way less than a Tesla.
Yeah.
So anyway, M3GAN moves in with them because they got to do more testing with her.
Yeah.
Really get this thing ready to show to the investors.
Yeah. And the thing with the Android 2 is that the longer it's around the person it's paired with, the more it will bond with that person and learn from it, and all that. So it's going to be continued testing, but also continued, this process to see what happens.
Yeah, because it's always on like this quest for self-improvement.
Yeah.
And learning about the people and all this sort of stuff. But in their pitch for it, then Gemma's like, it's like a parent's helper. She takes care of the little things.
Oh, yeah.
So you can have more time to do the things that are important.
Yeah.
And I'm like parenting?
Yeah, like parenting?
Like, that's not important? But no, like to her, of course, I mean, it's this, basically it's like a built-in babysitter and you don't have to do anything. So yeah, of course, for somebody who hasn't had kids and is a, I would have to say probably a Gen Z or maybe early, like a later millennial. She's probably a later millennial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me being an elder of the eldest millennial. So M3GAN kind of starts going kind of rogue. She's paired with Katie. And there's no like parental controls basically to override her at this point. We're kind of seeing the first bits of this. It's because this is where they're in the lab. I mean, I went like, there's a lot of stuff in this section where it was just like, do we really explain every little bit?
Right. Well, like, I mean, Gemma does have an override, but kind of what happens here, I think what you're referring to is we get the first look at how M3GAN can, sort of go rogue and, well, maybe go outside. But
she's not necessarily gone rogue.
No, she's not going rogue.
I think that was...
She's going outside. She's going outside of like the parameters that they thought. Right. And what basically happens is because M3GAN is like, I have no way to talk to Katie about death. I have no information about death. Yeah. And the team is basically like, well, you don't need to worry about that. And M3GAN ignores it and basically just does a Google search.
Yeah, she finds out about it and all this sort of. So I guess going rogue probably wasn't the best thing to say.
No,
I would say probably
it is the first hint that she is capable of perhaps exiting the parameters that were put forth onto her.
Yeah, she's becoming more sentient faster than what they thought.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Because she's starting to question things, and I don't think that they were ready for that. No. They hadn't worked with something that would question everything that they were doing up to this point. Now it's starting to do that. M3GAN analyzes like everything. We see Katie out in the yard. She's playing. M3GAN's watching her through the window in the living room. M3GAN's out playing with like a little bow and arrow thing, a suction cup bow and arrow. And she's like, "What's wrong, M3GAN?" And M3GAN's not answering. She's just watching like moths and butterflies. And kind of studying like everything. But you can see like in her brain, she's analyzing heat signatures and moods and all this sort of stuff of things and all this sort of stuff. Distances, all that sort. And Katie's like, "Oh, I lost one of my arrows." So M3GAN calculates what the arrow looks like. And starts scanning everything, the whole yard for this. And she sees it through the hole in the neighbor's fence. that the dog had made. So M3GAN goes over and she goes to grab, she kind of crawls through the hole to grab at the arrow, and the dog grabs M3GAN by the head or something and like starts rah! And so Katie then reaches through the hole to try to stop the dog and help M3GAN, and then the dog latches on to Katie, and Katie starts screaming. And Katie's been calling for help, calling to Gemma. Gemma has her headphones on. She's like bopping out to something. I don't know. Or she was listening to something. I don't know, like a podcast or something. And she finally hears Katie screaming. She comes out. The neighbor's out there now, and she's like, if your girls would stay out of my yard, blah, girls weren't in the yard. The dog was in our yard, blah, blah, and back and forth. And she's like, the neighbor finally said, well, this wouldn't have happened if you just fixed the fence. And M3GAN's hair looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And she's just staring the neighbor down over the fence like,
and it's
like crazy looking.
Back in the lab, Gemma had told
with M3GAN, a pen and a pad.
Back in the lab, Gemma had told M3GAN, your goal is to protect Katie from harm, both physical and emotional.
Not just goal, your primary directive.
So
your primary directive.
So now you've got, well, like she stands here, M3GAN's standing here, and she analyzes Katie, and she's like, her temperature's rising. You need to disinfect that wound. And then, then she turns and she just like stares at the neighbor, and the neighbor stares back at her like a little creeped out.
So we're now seeing that this, I mean, because it's very Terminator-like. With the way that she can scan things and read stuff and all that. So, we see then Seattle Police Department is there. So I'm like, oh, they're in Seattle, which makes sense because that's where Funko is. They're located in Seattle. So I'm like, okay, Funky is in Seattle. I get it.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. The police is like, there's nothing we can do. And then M3GAN's listening to this whole conversation from the house. So she has good enough hearing that she can hear the whole thing, and the police and Gemma are clear out at the street. It's a ways away.
And the police are basically like, I mean, the dog was not on Gemma's property. The dog was on its own property, on the owner's property. So
they're like, unless that dog was on your property, we can't do anything about it. So it's now later that evening. You hear the neighbor calling for the dog. I think it was like Stanley, Stewie.
Dewey.
What?
I think it's Dewey. I think.
Okay. So she's calling. You hear her voice calling, Dewey. Toward the fence hole. And you're like, well, this is weird. And so the dog's like, starts coming over towards the fence hole. Like, why is she calling me from over there? The dog gets close to the hole, and you see this little arm reach through and grab and pull the dog through the fence. Now it's the next morning. The neighbor is yelling for the dog. Day, out in the street, out in her robe, out and just, Gemma goes in. She checks on Katie. M3GAN's sitting there, just staring. M3GAN says that I think Katie needs to get rest, and Gemma's like, "Well, we need to go for that presentation today. We have the presentation," and M3GAN's not happy that Gemma is going to be taking Katie.
Well, so there's one thing specific here, and it's very subtle, but like Gemma like tells Katie, we don't have to do this if you don't want to. And then she says, well, she's like, true, people did fly halfway across the country just to see this. right?
Yeah.
As soon as she says that, Megan like looks from Katie to Gemma. So
Yeah.
like Megan recognizes the sort of emotional manipulation in that
Yeah.
statement.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, she can already this AI knows a potential emotional abuse scenario that she
Yeah.
has been programmed to prevent. So yeah.
Coercion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. So you can see through a lot of this film the learning process. Like
Yeah.
more and more things are being processed better.
Yeah.
David is giving the presentation to all the investors. He's like, saying about the future, blah, 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 all this. And they open up the curtains and we see Katie just sitting out in the middle of the fishbowl. I don't even know what else to call it.
Yeah, I don't
Observation
know.
room? I don't know. The theater.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the observation room is where all the investors are sitting.
Yeah, where they're
So,
at.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, fishbowl.
Yeah.
And Katie starts crying.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is clearly not what they expected. Right? There was
yeah.
Yeah.
Because Megan has come out and she's like, "What do you want to? Would you like to play something with me?" And Katie's just crying.
Yeah.
The investors are like, "What's going on?" David's like starting to get upset.
Yeah.
The team is freaking out. Megan goes over and she talks to Katie, and she's like, "Well, what's making you sad and all this?" And she's like, "Oh, she's basically saying about how her parents had died. She missed her parents and all this.
She's afraid she's going to forget them."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Well, tell me a good memory about your mom." So she tells her this memory and all this. And Megan's like, "Okay, good. Now we have it forever in here." And she replays the memory that Katie had just told her.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Now we can have it forever and listen to it whenever we start to feel sad." And then she starts singing this song. She's like, "La, la, la, la,
Yeah.
la, la, la."
She reaches over and wipes a tear from Katie's eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all the investors are like blown away. And they're just like, "Whoa, yeah." And David's like, "Yeah, I intended for this,"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. Okay. During this point, I stopped taking notes. I was like so intrigued by what was going on that I had to like go back and rewatch the whole, to retake notes. So anyway, there was a whole section where I was just like, I had no clue. Anyway. So, yeah, I had to like remember, not rewatch. I had to remember everything that had gone on. So if I forget anything coming up here in a little bit, I was taking notes.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, now it's 2 weeks. So he's like, "Okay, we've got." They're wanting to move forward with it. Basically, they want to fast track it before anybody else can get it out there, because somehow people are finding out what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we want to get it out there before anybody else can get it.
So they basically, the investors call for a public demonstration in 2 weeks, and until then, absolute silence.
Yeah. We then see Kurt, which is David's assistant.
Yeah.
He's leaking company info about Megan to another toy company.
Oh, at this point, you see him transfer all the files to like a personal file. So I think that's pretty clear that that's what he's been doing all along. He's been leaking leaking this info.
He's been the one leaking it.
Yeah. So
David comes up. He's like, "Hey, there you are. What you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I just, and he's like, "Okay." And David's kind of like, he's like, something's odd.
Yeah.
But not quite putting it all together. So now we're at lunch. Katie's not behaving. Gemma's like, "Eat your hot dog. We need to talk, blah, blah." And she's wanting to play with Megan. And it's getting tough. Now, we're seeing that the bond with Katie and Megan is stronger than the bond with Gemma and Katie, to the point where Katie won't even listen to Gemma.
Yeah.
Gemma's like, look, we need to, she's like, shut down. And Katie's like, no, power back up and all this. And so they're like fighting back and forth. She's like, look, we need to talk about school. She's like, I don't need school. Megan's teaching me everything I need, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we get this whole interaction. Next, we have the therapist. She's meeting with Katie at the fishbowl.
For some reason.
Like, yeah, I don't know why. I guess because she's just there.
Yeah.
Katie's done a bunch of drawings, and the therapist is like, what do these drawings mean? And Katie starts crying. Because it's bringing up bad memories and all this. And the therapist goes to grab a tissue, but there's no tissues. And she looks over, and Megan's standing there with a box of tissues. And Megan said, you made her cry.
Therapist says, that was not my intention.
She goes, yet that's what happened.
Yeah.
And just gives her like this death stare.
Yeah.
So now Gemma and the therapist are in the observation room. Megan and Katie are playing in the fishbowl. The therapist says to Gemma, she's like, she's incredible. This doll robot. Megan's incredible. Basically. Yeah. And she's like, have you ever heard of attachment theory, though? Where after a traumatic incident, or especially death, where children become attached to the first person that they really have interaction with. Mm-hmm. And they can become attached to them and all this sort of stuff. And she says, if Megan doesn't get older and all this sort of stuff and keeps treating Katie this way and doing all this stuff for her and all that, how do you expect her to grow? And she says if she's not able to learn and experience all these things, then the emotions between the two are hard to untangle.
Yeah.
These bonds are tough. We're now at dinner. Gemma's now like, okay, the therapist has set me straight type thing. I need to take more, more initiative type thing. And she's like, you need to eat this, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I don't want to eat this. And Megan starts spouting out facts about if you force kids to eat vegetables and all that, they'll be less likely to eat them later. And so Gemma takes a remote and just turns Megan down.
Yeah.
Like just turns her volume. Megan's still just talking away, but you can't hear her. She's like, look, there's a school that I think we should check out. She's like, well, my mom didn't want me to go to school, and she homeschooling's better and all that. And she's like, well, I can't because I got a job. And she goes, this is a alternative type school. It's really good. And she's like, well, can I take Megan? And she's like, no, you can't take Megan. And she's like, but Megan teaches me everything that I need to know anyway. She can teach me. She's smart and all this. And rightfully so. She probably could.
Yeah.
She's like, we're already learning such and such math and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. I was like, well, yeah, it's not a bad idea. But we'll talk about this later too. So she's like, well, if I can't take Megan, I'm not going. And she's like, no, you're going to go. She's like, you're not my whatever. She's like, I am, your guardian type thing. And Katie goes to run away. Gemma grabs her. She's like, let me go type thing.
And Gemma doesn't grab her forcefully. She kind of just she kind of just puts her arm on her. It's like, hey, wait, I'm sorry. Let's talk, But then Katie starts freaking out.
And pulls away and all this. And all of a sudden you hear, let her go, and the lights flicker.
Yeah.
And it's Megan. Megan's upset because she's like, you're hurting her. You're making her upset and all this sort of stuff. And she's like, Megan, you're not supposed to interfere with stuff like this and all that sort of stuff. Shut down. And she's like, are you sure?
Yeah.
She's like, download in progress. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And she then finally shuts down. And you hear Katie slam her door to her bedroom. And I'm like, this is getting weird. They're the next day, they're at the school / out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah. Well, again, this is one of those like outdoorsy, non-traditional schools.
Yeah, so. And they're also and they're getting to it's like an orientation type thing.
Yeah.
And blah blah. Katie's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to get out without Megan. And Gemma's like, no, I got to take her to the lab. We got stuff we've got to do there. And I don't want to go if she doesn't come. Blah, blah. One of the teachers comes up to get Katie, and she's like, oh, what 2 girls do we have here? And she's like, oh, this is Katie. And then Megan looks over and she's like, holy shit. It freaks her out. And she's like, oh, well, okay. She's just adult. It's just very lifelike. You can leave her at the toy table. There's a lot of kids who brought stuffed animals and things like that. You can leave her at the table and all this. And then they both can stay. And then she's like, even you can stay. Yeah. You can stay if you'd like and help out. We could always use help.
Yeah.
So finally they talk Gemma into staying.
Yeah. And I gotta say, for a project that's supposed to be ultra secret for the next 2 weeks, there are a lot of people seeing this thing just out in the open doing its thing. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Katie gets paired up with this douche bag of a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. A bully. Looks like he's like twice her age almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're supposed to be going looking for chestnuts. I mean, some time has passed. There's been a couple scenes, but to rush along here, they're looking for chestnuts. They're out in the woods area.
Yeah. They're
alone. And he like does something like pushes Katie and stuff and all this. And then he's like, he finds one of the chestnut things and she's like, oh, that was mine, and blah, blah. He's like this, and he goes to hand it to her and shoves it into her hand. It's got like these spiky things on it.
Yeah.
And he like shoves it into her hand. And it like, she's like, ow, 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 you're hurting me. And then Megan just appears.
Yeah. Yeah, he turns and Megan's just standing there.
Yeah. And he's like, what is that? And she's like, oh, that's Megan. That's she's a toy type. She's like my doll. And he's like, make her do something. And cause she's like, it's a robot type of thing. And so he's like flicking Megan in the nose, and then he starts bullying Katie worse. And then finally he just grabs Megan, picks her up, and runs off with her.
Yeah.
Katie then screams for Gemma. And Katie's going to look for what was it? Brandon was the kid's name. Yeah. She's going to look for him and for Megan. She can't find him because he's running like crazy off through the woods. Gemma has gone to look for Katie, and she's noticed that Megan is gone. She's not there from the table or at the toy table. So Brandon then gets to a spot where nobody's around. He throws Megan to the ground, gets like front mount, if you watch MMA, gets onto her, and he just starts punching her in the face. Takes off her shoe, all this sort of stuff. Starts hitting on her. Not hitting on her, but hitting her. And she finally looks at him and says something. And basically like, that's not very nice type thing and all this. And she reaches up and grabs him by the ear.
Yeah.
And starts pulling his ear, basically saying like how he's being naughty and all this. And his ear is just stretching like way out.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my word, I didn't think an ear could do that.
Yeah, this ear is stretching like putty. It's just stretching way farther than flesh should stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. And she pulls, and finally rips his ear off.
Yep.
He jumps off of her and like scurries back holding his ear. She exorcisms up, like off of her back, like puts her feet up and just come like back bend arch comes up.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there freaked out on the ground holding his ear. And she goes, "This is the part where you run." and
so
he takes off.
Yep.
And she's just kind of stalking him slowly at first.
Yeah.
Kind of getting up, like waiting for him to get a bit of a lead. And then she gets down on all fours and starts like running after him. And he's freaking out.
Yeah.
She's chasing him. He trips over something and rolls down a hill onto a road, sits up, and a car hits him.
Yep.
Boom. Dead. We once again see the police. They're all there. They're asking questions. M3GAN is in the car. They've locked her in there, I guess.
Yeah.
And Katie's looking at M3GAN, and she's like starting to be confused about what actually happened.
Yeah.
She's starting to wonder, what did M3GAN do?
But so M3GAN analyzes Katie's emotional state here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've got here, she's anxious, confusion, trepidation, guilt are all like sky high. But her fear, as she's looking at M3GAN, is not.
Huh.
So she's not afraid of M3GAN. She feels guilty about what happened, but... And so...
Yeah, she's still not afraid of her.
She's not afraid of her. It's almost like, if anything, she trusts her more now because M3GAN protected her. So
Gemma is trying to calm Katie down in the car.
Yeah.
She's like, "Look, it was an accident, blah, blah. What happened?" She's trying to get answers and all this sort of stuff. And finally, she's just like, "You know what? The boy's in a better place now."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder what Shane's going to say with this one.
I won't have to. Yeah. M3GAN will say it for me later.
Yeah. So the cops are at the house. She's like, "What's going on now?" The neighbor's looking for her dog. And the cop comes out and he looks in, and she's like, "Well, what about that other girl who's always staring out the window at 3 a.m., and all that? Ask her what's going on." And he's like, "Is there another girl here?" And she's like, "Well, no, she's a toy." And all that sort of stuff. And he looks in and he sees M3GAN sitting there looking around. He's like, "That's a toy?"
Yeah. Again, and someone else seeing this top secret project.
And the neighbor comes up, she starts banging on the window. She's like, "I know it was you, Gemma. I know it was you that killed my dog."
Yeah.
So now it's nighttime. M3GAN and Katie. Well, Katie's in bed. M3GAN's sitting there watching creepily.
Yeah.
And she says, "M3GAN, did you push Brandon onto the road?" Which, to be fair, she did not.
She did not, no.
And she goes, "I think we learned a valuable lesson today. And I will never let anything ever hurt you ever again."
Yeah.
And then Katie's like, "Do you think he's in a better place?" And she goes, "No.
Yeah.
He's nowhere."
Yeah. She says, if heaven exists, it wouldn't be for boys like Brandon.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
She put it right out there on Front Street for her. And then M3GAN starts singing Titanium by David Guetta and Sia. And I'm like, okay, that's random song to just be busting out.
Yeah.
But yeah, M3GAN's singing her a lullaby. We see the neighbor out looking for the dog, still calling for it late at night. She goes into a gate behind somebody's house.
Yeah. She hears like a crash or something.
Yeah, they show the house, but I don't know whose house it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of just got the impression it was just a random house in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and but see, here's why I'm thinking it was the old lady's house.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking it was her place that she heard the crash behind because of what happens once she gets back there.
Yeah.
So, but at first it's like I couldn't really tell. We hadn't seen the houses enough to go, oh, that's her house, because we hadn't seen it from this angle.
Yeah. So
she goes into a gate and we see the shed back there, the old lady goes into the shed, garage shed, whatever thing. And there's tools, all sorts of stuff. It's dimly lit, just the light from the moon coming in through the window.
Yeah.
And we see a dark, shadowy area in the back. And then all of a sudden, this little figure stands up.
Yeah. Well, you hear the dog whimpering.
Oh, you hear the dog whimpering. Yeah. That's right. But
then,
and she's like,
it's not the dog. It's just M3GAN.
And then M3GAN like stands up and she's like, what are you? Type thing. And then M3GAN like hits her with the pressure washer. And I'm like, this thing has a lot of pressure because it slams the lady across the place and like knocks her into all this stuff.
I wasn't sure what this was supposed to be.
It was a pressure washer.
Okay.
So the same one that she was using earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. The lady's down on the ground. She's trying to crawl away. M3GAN picks up a nail gun, shoots it through the lady's hand, and it like attaches her to something.
Yeah.
And then M3GAN says something. I don't remember what she says. And then takes the pressure washer to the lady's face.
Yeah.
And you see water going to a drain and then blood mixing with the water going into the drain. So it's like, oh, she shot the lady's face off.
Yeah.
Which it could do if you have high enough pressure. And they got a lot of pressure, I guess.
Yeah.
The next morning, cops are asking questions. They're there. They start asking Gemma, do you know anything about what was going on? She's like, ask the neighbor lady, and all this. And he's like, well, we can't. And you see the lady being wheeled out and all this. He's like, I got to ask you some questions about this. And he says, oh, you were connected with you were questioned with something else this week too about the kid, and she's like, what, do you think they're connected and all this? And he goes, well, that one, we weren't quite for sure, but then we found the kid's ear ripped off 200 yards away.
Yeah. Still in the woods. Right.
Yeah, in the woods.
Because they're like, he rolled down the hill, obviously, but they found his ear in the woods, so.
Yeah, so we're now looking that's a potential homicide, too.
Yeah.
And then Gemma looks up at the house and she sees M3GAN watching.
Yeah.
From the window. So now it's nighttime again. So we've had a whole day. Now it's night again. Gemma is checking out stored videos in M3GAN's database through her laptop. And has found that during that time of when these things would have all happened, that M3GAN has deleted some of those videos.
Yeah.
And then you hear Elsie, the automated Alexa thing, starts going, Gemma, are you okay? Would you like for me to play this, this playlist? And she's like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, no. And she's like, are you okay, Gemma? And she's like, I didn't program you to question my feelings and all that sort of stuff. And she looks over, starts to shut her laptop, and she sees M3GAN standing there next to Elsie.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's wrong, Gemma? Have I done something wrong? And she's like, no, shut down. And she goes, now hold on. I thought we were having a conversation. She goes, you say nothing's wrong, but your demeanor says otherwise. There's something you want to ask me, isn't there? And she's like, did you hurt someone? She goes, God, I hope not. Because if I did, we'd both be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't we? And I'm like, holy crap. Now she's using this like blackmailing.
Yeah.
Like, if you turn me in, you're going down too type thing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Gemma then is like, okay, she's not shutting down on her own. I need to get her to shut down. So she's like, look at this pen. Look at the tip of it. I want to, let's play a game, like look at and then she reaches over and like does this fail safe shutdown button thing. She then takes duct tape and wraps it around Megan and bubble wrap and all this sort of stuff and basically wraps Megan up like a mummy.
Yeah.
Which I guess I found out this week we're not supposed to say mummy anymore. It's mummified person. According to something. Yeah, we're not supposed to say mummy anymore. So
I probably don't even want to know why.
Bodies.
Yeah.
So she wraps her up, puts her into the trunk. Okay. Katie's now in the car with her. They're going back to the left. My voice keeps cracking today. I don't know what's going on. It's like second puberty.
Yeah.
Katie's freaking out. She's like, you can't do this. Blah, blah, blah. What's wrong? You can't just shut Megan down. Blah, 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 blah. She's my friend. And she's like, and I don't want to go see Lydia, which is the therapist.
Yeah.
And all this.
Yeah.
And she starts kicking Gemma's seat. And she's like, what's wrong with Megan? She goes, I don't know. And she goes, and when I do, you will be the first to know. She goes, we're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. Gemma and the team are talking about Megan. Katie's in the fishbowl with the therapist. She's like taking stuff and like throwing it and just not wanting to talk. I want to see Megan. They're trying to rationalize. They're like, murder? Like, how would she murder someone? And Megan's just bubble wrapped, taped up on the couch.
Yeah.
back behind them while they're talking. They're like, David's going to flip out. Like all this is going on. It's not going to be ready and all this. And she's like, you know what? She deleted the videos. Check her learning models. She would never delete those. Yeah. She wouldn't erase basically like things that she's learned. And then you see Katie throw a chair at the glass. And she's like, I want to save Megan. Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, she's totally losing it. Yeah.
It's now the day of the live stream launch. We have like a promotional thing like on a Today Show type pod or broadcast.
Yeah.
You're seeing it play on TVs and stuff, and it's like a broadcast, news to anchor type lady talking about David, whatever from Funky Toys, going to be unleashing unveiling the new whatever toy. And then we see Katie in the promo video, and she's talking about losing her parents.
Yeah.
And then it starts talking about Megan, and then David's like, this is why, blah, blah, even if your parents didn't die, it's just, there were some funny lines that only he could pull off.
Yeah. But it's a really messed up, like crass, exploitative promotional video.
Yeah.
So it's,
yeah.
But it's exactly the sort of thing you would expect out of a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
So
yeah. During this video, Katie says the thing that matters the most is that when Megan looks at me, I'm the only thing. It's like I'm the only thing that matters to her.
Yeah.
And that's what she needed. And Gemma's watching this and she's kind of like, oh, it's like this realization of like, oh, she just needs somebody, she wants to matter to somebody. Then she hears Katie yelling from the other room, and she's in like the atrium of this place, and she can hear Claire back at the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Gemma comes in just in time to see Katie pull a pair of scissors on the therapist, like she's going to stab her.
Yeah.
And obviously, Katie's gotten to the point where she's violent now.
Yeah.
Because she can't be around Megan. So now we're seeing these bonds are like, not great. Gemma comes in, pulls the scissor away, and then Katie slaps Gemma in the face. Not the other way around.
Yeah.
Katie slaps Gemma.
Yeah.
the therapist is like, I'm going to give you guys a minute. She leaves, and Katie says, when M3GAN is around, I don't feel like this. I don't feel mad, and I don't feel sad about my parents and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And Gemma says, no, you should feel like this.
Yeah, it's okay.
Goes,
it's okay to feel like
this. I was wrong. M3GAN is a distraction.
Yeah.
She says, but you need to have these emotions. You need to be sad about your parents. You need all this sort of stuff. And she goes, you and I, we will get through this together. She goes, I promise your mother I'd take care of you. You are all that matters to me now.
Yeah.
So she wants, and she's telling Katie all this. She's now come to the realization that, like, this is more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to the point where, all right, she just leaves. They're about to launch this big product, and she just...
yeah, they're just like, we're gone. We're going to go home.
Yeah.
David's flipping out about the launch. He's up above the atrium area looking, seeing that, what is this? You know, I thought that this was going to be some big reveal launch party thing. And they're like, well, it was just a live stream. You know, we didn't figure there'd have to be a lot of people. We just invited the employees. He's like, no, we should have tons of people, celebrities, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. He's like, this place needs to be packed and all that. And they're like, get more people, get more people. You know, just the way that he says it, it's just incredible.
And he's an absolute jerk to his little sidekick assistant, Kurt, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, well, it's no wonder Kurt's a turncoat, because he gets treated like dirt.
Yeah, and Kurt's like, we could do this. And he's like, you know what you could do? You could go get me a kombucha and all this sort of stuff. You know, and basically, treats him like nothing, you know, and so Kurt's like feeling very mad and all this. Gemma calls Tess, which is one of the girls on the team. Because there's three of them on their team. There's Gemma, Tess, and the guy.
Yeah, the guy. I have no idea what his name is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm sure IMDb says it. Gemma's in her car at this point. She's taking Katie home. She's telling Tess, like, look, I'm taking Katie. We're getting out of here. M3GAN, don't let her out.
Yeah.
You know, there's something wrong. You're going to have to tell David we have to stop the launch. We can't do this. And we see Tess's phone just sitting there.
Yeah. While Tess is busy.
Desk.
Tess is busy working on something or something.
Yeah.
She's not even by the desk. Yeah.
No, not even talking to the phone. We find out that M3GAN has hijacked the phone call.
Yeah.
And she says, whatever you say, Gemma, you're the boss. And it sounds kind of odd. It doesn't seem like what Tess would say.
It's in Tess's voice, but like, even Gemma notices like that sounded odd. Yeah.
Yeah. Tess comes over to the desk area and sees that her phone is on just in time to see that the phone call is being hung up from Gemma and that it was a substantial phone call. It was a lengthy phone call. And so she starts checking out M3GAN's code to see what happened. And the guy teammate shows up and they're like looking at all the coding and seeing what all was going on. And they see that there was a call intercept that had happened.
Yeah.
And it was Tess's phone number. And at that exact same moment, her computer and all the power to that area shuts down. They're like, we have to unhook her. We have to she's still linked into the system.
Yeah, because
we need to get her.
Because their thing is like, she's not even on, right?
Yeah,
but
she's off.
Somehow she's still online. So
she's still plugged in. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they say. Like, we're gonna have to manually disconnect her.
Yeah. So she's still patched in. That's what they.
Yeah.
Then so he's like, well, go ahead. And she's like, no, you do it. So he starts like getting closer to M3GAN, and he takes this big long stick with it's like a post almost, and it's not like it's something on the end of it. And he's like starts bashing M3GAN in the face with it to check to see if she's awake.
Yeah,
she doesn't respond. So he starts going around. He unplugs a couple. And then it's very, very tense. And he comes around to the front. He's almost done. He unplugs the last one. She wakes up. Power comes back onto the computers. She takes the cord that he had just unplugged from her and she whips it around his neck, pulls it tight, and pulls another one, which gets him like pulled up to the roof or to the ceiling. And she's holding him up there and he's like choking and all this. She attaches it to whatever the thing was, the framework that she was part of.
Yeah.
While the Tess comes over to try to help him, M3GAN escapes from the lab. But before she does, she gets all these chemical things to get, basically lights it on fire and blows up the lab.
Yeah.
Okay. David calls Gemma, leaving her a message. We have no doll. Blah, blah, blah. How can I do this launch if we have no doll? You're not here. I can't find anything. Blah. And he hangs up the phone. He's mad. He's in this hallway. And now we get the scene from the trailer where M3GAN does the dance in the hallway, which I was extremely pissed about because they did not use the song from the trailer. They used some different song because the song from the trailer has been stuck in my head for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I love that song. Doll's Kill by Bella Poarch was way better in this scene. But she does the dance. She grabs the paper cutter arm off of a paper cutter.
Well, what's funny is David is like watching her. He comes down. He's like, "There you are," to M3GAN, and she starts doing her little dance. He's like, "What are you doing?" Right? She gets halfway down the hall and grabs that blade from the paper cutter. And he's like, "Oh crap!"
And he's like, "Oh no!" And he takes off running. She goes after him with this. And if you've seen one of those paper cutter slicer things, it's like almost like a scimitar.
Yeah.
You know, when you rip it off of there. It's like, So she starts chasing him with that. We see at the end of the hallway, there's an elevator that opens. Kurt, the assistant, is in it. And he sees that David's running towards him and M3GAN's coming after him with that thing. And Kurt's trying to shut it as quickly as possible. And David's like, no, keep it open. And David gets it almost shut. Kurt gets it almost shut. David gets to the thing, trying to squeeze in, and right through his chest from the back comes that cutter. And David gets killed. He slides down, and M3GAN's standing there. Kurt's fallen back against the back of the elevator, and he's like, "How did you kill him? How did you do this?" Like, basically, like he's not comprehending.
How could you do this?
And she's like, "I didn't, Kurt. You did."
And then she lists everything out.
Like all what his motives would have been, and all this, how he exposed the company secrets.
Yeah, basically said you stole company secrets, you got caught. You know, it's like,
and now it makes it look like you killed him because things went bad.
Yeah,
and then you felt guilty about it, Kurt, and you couldn't live with yourself anymore. And he's like, "What? No!" And she ends up killing Kurt. The elevator goes ding and it opens back up. She slips out. A lady from the crowd looks over and sees the blood massacre inside of the elevator, and she loses it. Everybody starts freaking out. M3GAN's outside, conveniently steals a parked $100,000 plus car.
Yeah.
It's just right there. Must have been David's. And drives off. Gemma checks on Katie, who's now in bed. They're back at home. And she starts hearing music from the living room area. And she's like, "Elsie, lights on." And the lights don't come on. And for some reason, Elsie's been hijacked. Will not respond, whatsoever. Gemma's looking around through a dark house. She gets to the window, looks out, doesn't see anything unusual, turns around, and there's M3GAN sitting at a baby grand piano.
Yeah.
don't know where that came from, but there's a small grand piano there in the living room, and she's playing the song Toy Soldiers, which I thought was ironic.
Nice.
And she's like, Megan, what are you doing? And Megan's just playing, looking at her. She's like, what did you do? And then Megan's like, what did you think was going to happen? Were you going to decommission me without even talking to me about it?
Yeah.
And then she's like, you were a bad parent. And basically, she was like, you were a bad parent to her, not giving her everything that she needed.
Yeah.
But she's going to do the same thing to Katie. And she's like, and I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to show her what real love looks like. Let me focus on Katie and you can focus on you.
Yeah.
Type thing. You know, let me take care of her. And at this point, Megan's got Katie like down in a chair, I think, or something. I don't remember. Somehow she's like pinned down.
Yeah.
Katie opens the bedroom door. She's like, Gemma. And Megan grabs Gemma's face. And she mimics Gemma's voice. It's okay. You know, and it's just me. And then Megan says to Gemma, she goes, if she comes in here, I will rip your head off. And then Gemma says, it's okay. I thought about what you said and I'm fixing her, but don't come in. It's a mess. And then Megan's like, yeah, I don't want you to see me like this. Just go back to bed. Everything's going to be okay. Then Gemma tries to make a move to take down Megan, but then Megan like counter moves and like throws her onto the table and like slams her down. And then she looks at Gemma, then she says to Katie, she's like, I'm going to be with you guys forever. I promise. Like, go back to bed.
Yeah.
So Gemma takes the opportunity, takes a glass of water and hits Megan in the head. Which I was like, oh, that's all it took?
I know, right?
Then they kind of fight a little bit, and then Megan starts short-circuiting out. Gemma gets away somewhat, and then a glitchy Megan pursues her. I'm like, hey, this is kind of like that Santa Claus
movie,
one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird, too, because this is like, this was actually the first point in the movie that I kind of rolled my eyes because I'm like, really? The cup of water thing on an Android? That's going to work in this movie?
Yeah, because it's like, oh, if it's raining out, what would happen? So,
yeah.
But she's kind of glitchy. Katie yells from her bedroom, what's going on? And Gemma's like, Katie, get out of here. So Katie like runs to like her window, like she's going to try to escape. Now we're in the garage area, the lab garage. Megan's picks up a hammer, and Gemma grabs a hedge trimmer.
Oh, is that what that was? Okay.
And
then they big saw of some sort.
Yeah, so they start going at it, like clashing each other with this hedge trimmer. It's like, and Gemma like gets to Megan's face and like cuts her face with the hedge trimmer, and then gets it caught in her hair and it like rips out big chunks of hair and all this. So then Gemma gets knocked down, and then Gemma says, so what's your plan? Where are you going to live? You and Katie going to live with her grandparents down in Florida? Huh? You think that they'll take you type thing? And she's like, yes, I've looked into these scenarios and all this sort of stuff. And then she says, here's my idea. If I hit like this certain nerve or whatever, it'll paralyze you. And then I'll cut out your tongue and make it so you can't talk.
Yeah.
So basically, and then she goes, then you'll see how much you need me. And I'll take care of Katie. And then I'll have to take care of you type thing. And she won't be able to say anything different about it. And then they'll be a happy family together. And then Gemma looks over and she sees Katie at the door. And Megan looks over and she goes, Katie, I didn't want you to see me like this. But you know what I said was true. and she's not fit to be your mother.
Yeah.
And then Gemma's like, run, Katie. And then M3GAN says, like, stay there, Katie. This is how we stay a family. And Katie starts coming a little closer to M3GAN. And Gemma's like, no, no, no. And she goes, but M3GAN, there's another member of the family that we didn't tell you about. M3GAN kind of looks confused, and so does Gemma. And Katie goes, his name is Bruce. And she activates the haptic gloves. And then, like I said a few weeks ago, we get doll on doll action.
Yeah.
Where now we get a fight between Bruce and M3GAN. And Katie's doing all the movements and like punching M3GAN and picking her up and slamming her down and doing all this sort of stuff. And finally, she picks up M3GAN by the foot. And M3GAN says, Katie, wait. And then she starts to sing like this, I love you and me and something, blah, blah, blah. And Katie goes, nope. And like takes the other house and just rips her apart.
Yeah.
Throws her. Okay. But no, M3GAN's not done.
Nope.
It's like, oh, it's over. And then the top half of Katie's or M3GAN starts like moving things out of the way and starts crawling towards Katie. So Bruce gets back up. He starts coming towards M3GAN. And then Bruce, what is your line, sir?
Oh, Bruce trips over a horror movie.
There it is. Bruce trips over a horror movie.
Yeah. I honestly, I couldn't tell what exactly happened here. He falls.
I think he stepped on M3GAN's legs.
Oh, okay. Because it basically like, calls him to lose his balance, and he falls and lands on Gemma.
Yeah. M3GAN then grabs Katie by the head on either side of the head, and she's like, you ungrateful little bitch. And then Katie goes, M3GAN, turn off. And she goes, oh, I'm afraid that won't work anymore.
Yeah.
And Gemma crawls out.
Because M3GAN basically says, because Katie was M3GAN's primary user, and M3GAN's like, I'm my own primary user now.
Yeah. So Gemma crawls out from under Bruce, grabs Bruce's head that has fallen off during that whole falling thing, and she starts bashing M3GAN's skull in. Grabs the skin off of M3GAN, rips the skin off. M3GAN then grabs Gemma by the throat. Not only does it rip the skin off, it's also the front part of M3GAN's skull has come off, and you kind of see her core processor.
Yeah, you basically see the same type of core and like processing unit that Bruce has, because earlier in the movie, Gemma had taken off Bruce's face to show Katie exactly how everything works. Right. And so
where
you
his
see
brain was.
Yeah, and you see the same basic setup here in M3GAN.
Yeah.
So it's just an evolution of her previous design.
So M3GAN then grabs Gemma by the throat, is choking her. It's coming down to like the last second. Katie grabs a screwdriver and stabs M3GAN right in the face processor.
Yeah.
Just, and M3GAN goes down. It's all over. They're like kind of hobbling out of the house. Cops are showing up for some reason.
I don't know.
Don't know why.
You know what? You know what it is? Because her Tess and Dude, her teammates from the lab.
That's right.
Show up.
Right.
They're in the police car. So they
That's right. See, I don't remember seeing Tess. I just remember the guy show up.
Yeah.
And he's like wearing a mask, and he's like all like soot covered and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Because I was like,
and we see them.
I guess they survived the explosion.
Yeah.
So
we see Gemma and Katie kind of hobble out of the house. The camera pans back into the house, and then we see Elsie power up and turn back on.
Yeah.
And then the credits.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're like, oh, okay. M3GAN 2.
Elsie turns on, turns to face. Yeah. So,
so now it's going to be L or E or 3 L S I E.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I guess it's actually just M3GAN 2.0, which again doesn't make sense. M3GAN is the the generation Model 3.
Yeah.
So the next M3GAN would be Model 4, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so what did you think of it? Does it deserve the hype? Does it what are your thoughts?
So I think it absolutely deserved the hype. I can see why it was kind of almost instantly loved. It was obviously like directly compared to the Child's Play remake, right? Because the Child's Play remake was the same basic thing. It's an android buddy, whereas in the original it was voodoo, stuff.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that I actually even liked the Child's Play remake. I thought it was good for what it was. The setup of that one, though, was really stupid because in the beginning of the Child's Play remake, it's just some disgruntled employee flips the morality switch. I'm like, why did you build in a morality switch to it all? But that's basically what happens. And then that movie, they kind of becomes, they take the whole Stranger Things, we're going to focus on this group of kids thing, you know. And so that was decent for what it was. I just think it's funny that then this movie comes along and just does everything that did and does it way better. You know? And so I thought this was a fun movie. I understand why they kind of pulled back on the violence to make it PG-13, but I would have preferred to see this in its original cut, I think.
Yeah. I agree to that to an extent. I can see why. I would love to see, the kills and all that sort of stuff. I would love to see it be more brutal. However, with as playful as this movie was and fun, if you will, I mean, that's the only thing that I can describe about this movie is about it being fun.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. I mean,
if it was rated R, I don't think it wouldn't have done as well as, because the serious tone of it wasn't there enough.
Yeah.
It lends itself more towards that PG-13.
Yeah.
It was a fun movie. I do have to say this, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier when I had stopped taking notes and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I was ready for this movie to be over.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think the reason why I was ready for it to be over is I was like mentally, I was just like, I'm done taking notes. I don't want to take notes anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it was more so that. And I think I got to this point with it where it was just like, oh, I just want to watch the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking to my wife about this last night. I was like, I don't think it was a matter of, because if I go back and I look at the film now compared to what I thought of it yesterday, like when I finished it yesterday, I was like, I didn't care for it. But thinking about it today, the more that I thought about it this morning and the more that I thought about it later on, I really liked the movie. It was fun. I was just tired of taking notes.
Yeah.
And I think analyzing every little thing about a film sometimes makes it tough.
Yeah. It does.
Because you are overly criticizing everything. So all in all, I think it was a fun movie. I mean, clear to the point. This is how far I criticized it yesterday. This was filmed in New Zealand, not in Seattle, where I grew up. So that's why it didn't look like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, of course it didn't look like it. It was filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the trees are wrong. This is wrong. You would see more ocean. There was a lot of, so, I mean, it was to that point where I'd gotten with it, but I think it came down to the job of it rather than watching it to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking back on it now, I really liked the movie. I thought it was good. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't overly serious.
No.
It was just a fun film.
Yeah. It was a fun film that I actually, if I had time to kill, I'd probably watch it again because I've actually been kind of wanting to watch it again. I'm absolutely looking forward to where they go with a sequel and what direction they decide to try to take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely leaves me intrigued.
Yeah.
So all in all, yeah, good film.
Yeah.
I dug it.
I thought this was a good one. I really liked it, and I'm
I wouldn't have an issue with kids watching it. I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it has its dark elements and stuff to it, but for the most part, it's not overly dark.
I didn't think about that. I never go into any of these movies thinking, oh, I wonder if my kid could watch this. But that is a good point, and it might actually be a good conversational opportunity to talk about perhaps the dangers of unchecked AI development and where robotics might be dangerously leading. You know, I mean, you even mentioned the other day to me how the you saw that Boston Dynamics dog walking around with a gun attached to it. And now we find out that I think it was the LA Police Department. They basically got around this law that basically allowed them. They essentially had one of those a quadrupedal vehicle donated to them. You know, so I was like, oh great, come on. I've been saying from the beginning, like, if you think that like these Boston Dynamics robots aren't going to be used for police or military, you're a fool. Or you're being paid off.
That's absolutely where it was going immediately.
So and you know, we've had some of the smartest minds in history warn us about AI technology.
Yeah.
You know, and Elon Musk. Yeah. Well, his robot can't even take a step forward without being without help.
I meant you said some of the smartest minds.
Yeah, and Elon Musk. Yeah, well, that's being my point, though. That like he's building a robot too, but it couldn't even take a step forward without help. So
I think when it comes to Elon Musk, I think I don't know. I mean, he's a smart guy. He really is, and I think he surrounds himself with people that can aid him. I think that's a big thing.
And this is one of the arguments I made too. I've told you before, like I didn't even know who this dude was until you mentioned him to me a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm like, if nothing else, that guy got a whole bunch of insecure dude bros to give him $8 a month just to own the libs, you know? So I mean the dude's not stupid.
No.
But
anyway.
Yeah. I like this. I love the topic of, you know, AI and all that. And I think, you could argue that, look, it's another rogue AI movie. Yeah, it is. But I don't know.
It was done in a fun way.
Yeah, this was a fun and clever take on it. And it was the whole like dance scene was completely unnecessary, but it's also like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny though. So
I just wish that they would have used the song from the trailer.
Oh yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
that's all because whatever.
Yeah.
Tell us what you guys think.
Yeah.
If you guys have seen it, hopefully you guys have. Leave a comment down below. And while you guys are there, make sure you hit like and subscribe.
That's right.
Because that helps us out, definitely. Thumbs up from us.
Yep.
It sounds like. Here's some other films that we might be able to give a thumbs up on or a thumbs down to here soon. This should be coming up on the screen right about now. These are films that you guys can check out here within the next few weeks to a couple months that are coming to either theater. That's all, folks. You guys can either check them out in theaters or on streaming services. So anyway, cool. Well, this brings me into a little story for this segment that we like to do every week. It is called Real Life Stories of Horror. Or something close to that. This one happened not too long ago. 2017. So I guess it was about 6 years ago. This one had to do with Google Home speakers.
Oh no.
So yeah. AI and robotics technology for commercial use was kind of released back in 2016 for the most part. Just like Alexa. And in January of 2017, a live debate between two Google Home speakers was streamed on Twitch. and it lasted for several days. In the beginning, things were pretty cool, but later the conversation became very aggressive. And here's where the horror part of it comes. At the end of the debate, they both concluded that the world would be a better place if there were no humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the horror is still yet to come.
Oh, yeah, the horror is still yet to come. And what's even more horrifying about that is that's not even the only instance of stuff like that happening.
No. But I figured it was fitting with what we were with the film today.
I remember there was this one, the AI robot that it was being talked to, and they're like, it just wants everyone to like it. Oh, well, how would you get people to like you? I think that I would hack in and try to take control of the world's nuclear arsenal, because then people would have to like me and have to be nice to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he could become president.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But yeah, fantastic. Like we like to do every week, we wrap up with a little segment that we call I'm trying to think of something witty, something clever. Pass it or axe it? I don't know. Pick or pass.
Aren't those the same?
Well, no, if we let it pass.
Oh, okay.
Did it thrill you or did it kill you? I don't know. We've had a few people respond in some comments and in some messages. So I appreciate you guys for reaching out with a few different things. But we will keep going on our search and on our quest. I don't know why I just did this. But I don't know. But anyway, Shane, I'm going to let you start out. This is Pick or Pass is something where every week we say something that we've watched or something that something that we've watched, viewed, come up to us horror related that we think you should pick up, check out, or pass on it.
Yeah.
Shane, I'll let you start.
All right. Believe it or not, this week I almost had a pass.
Wow.
I had a difficult time. I watched several short films, most of which I was just going to be like, don't waste your time. But then I ended up coming across one. It is a horror short film. It was presented on Alter, of course.
Of course.
And this is actually a Russian film called Mechanica. Okay. And it's hard to read the description here because it was obviously written by someone whose first language is not English. But the basic idea, a young scientist invites all his colleagues to view his latest experiment. Sort of like an artsy thing, too. Is it art? Is it science? Whatever. But he basically unveils it, and it's a robotic entity. Right? And then it goes bonkers, and I'm left after this 15-minute film like, what did I just watch?
Nice.
Because it goes in a direction that I would have never guessed, so...
Okay.
It's called Mechanica, and I honestly think it's really worth a watch just for how bonkers it gets.
Nice. Yeah. So a little AI related, little robot related.
Yes,
nice.
It is.
Well, mine deals with a young girl because I was like, hey, this one had a young girl. Why not check this one out? I watched, finally got around to watching the remake, this last year's remake of Stephen King's Firestarter.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one's getting a lot of attention right now due to the Razzies, the online awards, and the guys who did the Razzie Awards decided to give the girl who played Charlie in this a Razzie for the worst performance.
Well, she was
by a female actress.
She was nominated, right? I don't think.
She was nominated.
She was nominated. Yeah.
I thought that they said that she got it.
Okay. I think she was just nominated, and then that's what made everyone mad.
Well, for the sheer fact that they took a little girl and gave this to her. A, horrible for them to even do that. And B, completely unmerited. She did a great job in this.
Oh, okay.
I actually really, really liked this.
Really?
I did.
Okay.
I liked it. I thought that they did a great job. And Zac Efron, still hot. I think he's a hot dude. That's he's a good looking man.
How
That's
old?
all I'm gonna say.
How old does this make me feel though that he's now in a movie as a parent?
He's as a dad. I know. I was thinking that same thing too. I was like, hey, look, it's a DILF. But anyway, no, I thought he did a good job. I thought she did a great job. I liked it. I mean, was it the greatest thing that I watched all year? No. But
it has a 10% on
not the worst
on Rotten Tomatoes. So I thought you were going to go a different direction with that review, but
I actually thought it wasn't that bad. Okay. I don't know. I liked Firestarter. I liked the original Firestarters. Again, wasn't the worst thing that I've seen. Wasn't the greatest thing I've seen, but I thought that they did all right with it. It's worth checking out. Okay. It is. To me, it was worth checking out. So, I don't know. I'll probably catch a lot of crap for that one, but whatever. I enjoyed it. I liked. See, I went into this film too. I really liked this girl's performance in Red Tide, the season of American Horror Story.
Oh, okay.
And she did a great job in that season. So yeah. And I liked her in this too. So anyway, it was and Zac Efron's got some abs, dude. I mean, just washboard abs. Anyway, yeah. So anyway,
all right.
Yeah. There's a picture for you guys. Anyway, yeah. So it's a pick for me. I enjoyed it. So
okay.
We got two picks for this week.
Yep.
And or you guys can pass on it. I don't care. I watched it. I thought it was all right. Anyway, tell me what you guys think. Leave your comments down below. While you're there, hit like and subscribe. If I've creeped you out in any sort of way during this episode, also mention that. Talking about Zac Efron's abs. Anyway, Shane's going to be commenting. Anyway, yeah. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe while you're there. Shane, what film are we going to be talking about next?
Over the past several weeks, we've mentioned several times the various top 10 lists from 2022, right?
Yes, we have.
What we're actually going to be reviewing is the movie that has actually rated the best horror movie on Rotten Tomatoes for 2022.
Yeah. Now, so if you guys follow that at all.
Yeah. So, but the funny thing is, I don't remember hearing this mentioned on any top 10 list, but overall, from all the critic ratings, this has the highest ratings of any horror movie. And this is Hellbender.
Hellbender
it is.
I checked out the trailer to this. It is a Shudder original. So if you guys have Shudder, check it out. We will be checking it out this week. Yep. We will come back next week and share notes, and let's all do this as a class together.
Yeah. Here's your homework. Watch this movie.
Here's your homework.
Notes. Give us the notes so that we can read your notes.
And if Shudder would give us a way of, if they'd love to sponsor this, we'd be like, here's the code where you can get Shudder for blah 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 blah. Try it for this much.
That's right.
Whatever. Anyway, Shudder, we're talking to you. So anyway, next week, Hellbender. So hope you guys join us for that. Make sure to hit like and subscribe so you guys can keep up when these episodes drop immediately. So anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, whatever. I'm Chris Mess.
I'm Shane.
Get the hell out of here.
See you next
week.
You
guys.
Ha 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 ha!